Commissioners, and back to you, Chair Harrington.
Great. Welcome to the afternoon session of the Washington County Board of Commissioners work session for March 12th, 2024. Commissioner Willie is excused today, so you have 4 of the 5 of us. We have just a couple of agenda topics remaining for this afternoon, and the first one is to go over Strategic Investment Program policy update.
That's right. Thank you, Chair Harrington. Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Matt Curry. I'm Washington County's Economic Development Manager, and joining me is Aaron Doyle,
Senior Government Relations Manager.
Yes, we'll be talking today about the SIP, the Strategic Investment Program, and specifically the county's policy and updates to that policy. So we are here today because we are fully expecting that there's going to be new investments semiconductor industry here in Washington County following the CHIPS Act at the federal level. So we're working to update the county SIP policy to prepare for that. So the SIP is one of the most critical tools that we have here in Oregon to support advanced manufacturing and semiconductor companies. Today's presentation, we're going to do a brief recap of the previous discussions that we've had with your board about the county's SIP policy. And then we're going to talk about some of those changes and look to discuss those proposed updates to the county's SIP policy with a focus specifically on the program objectives section. So policy questions for today's presentation are, do these proposed changes sufficiently and accurately capture your board's direction for an updated SIP policy? And do you direct county staff to make the proposed SIP policy changes and bring the updated policy to your board for future? So just have a couple slides here to talk about the SIP tool. SIP is a unique economic incentive. It's focused on traded sector businesses that make substantial local investments. In fact, the minimum investment amount actually after the last legislative session, 2023 legislative session, I should say, not the short session, minimum investment would be $150 million, of which $100 million, the first $100 million are treated like other taxes in our tax. There is this persistent myth that companies that use the SIP do not pay property taxes. In fact, companies that use the SIP, we have 3 here in Washington County right now, are some of the largest taxpayers, property taxpayers here in Washington County. On the slide, you'll see some limited data. You'll see this is from 2015 to 2021, some of the data that we were able to gather for this presentation that really demonstrates some of the fiscal and financial impact of these investments. You can see that thousands of jobs, over $41 million in property taxes, and over $270 million in special fees. So that's, of course, more than that, given that we have a limited time range there. Why is SIP important? SIP is important for a number of different reasons. It is Oregon's most substantial investment tool and helps us keep competitive with other regions. So when semiconductor companies and other advanced manufacturing companies are looking to locate a new factory, a new fab, a new research facility, they're looking all across the country and actually in many cases all across the world. And SIP is one way that we can invest and help bring them to Oregon. SIP is also important because it creates high wage jobs. Jobs created under SIPs are higher than the average wage here in Washington County and have quite the premium across the board and compared to other industries. The third point I have here in the slide is talking about economic mobility. So economic mobility is the concept that people are able to move to a higher economic status over the course of their lifetimes. A recent study showed that wage premiums in the semiconductor industry here in Oregon, of which SIPs are primarily focused, are higher than all other industries. And interestingly, I'll point out that this study showed that wage premiums for BIPOC workers, workers with communities of color, were substantially higher than their peers in other industries, especially those with associates and bachelor's degrees. So it's not just PhDs and folks with master's degrees that are benefiting from these positions. It's really providing a career ladder for folks across the Washington County community. The graphic on this slide illustrates those 9,300 jobs that I showed on the previous slide. So those are the jobs that are created with the current 3 SIPs that we have, 2 with Intel and 1 with Genentech. This is a timeline of our conversation with your board about the county's SIP policy. So just a little bit of orientation to today's discussion. Maybe I should have had this one earlier, excuse me, my slide deck, a little out of order here this afternoon. So we first came to your board in July of 2023 with a SIP overview. You'll recall that we had a consultant here that talked about the SIP tool in depth. In September, we brought some initial changes. Your board had a discussion about some of those initial changes and modifications to the policy. And then here we are today, March 12th. Can't believe it's 2024, moving into Q2 here already, where we have additional modifications to the policy. For your board, we have included the updated changes to the SIP policy in your packet. It's pages 280 to 287 in your packet. So all of that text is in there, all that proposed text. So Washington County's SIP policy, for those in the public and the audience here, is a policy that was created in 2006 to guide the county's negotiations with companies interested in doing a SIP agreement with the county. It has 4 sections. It's a pretty short policy. It's very concise. It has a program overview, program objectives, evaluation guidelines, and then a review process. So the proposed changes are in 2 sections. They are in the overview section and the program objectives sections. Now we're going to talk about some of those changes. I'll turn it to my colleague Erin here to talk about the changes to the overview section.
Thank you, Matt. The proposed changes to the overview really reflect the work that has been done on SIP state policy, so that when someone is interested, a company that might be interested in a SIP agreement understands what a SIP can and can't do, what the minimum thresholds are, and the basis by which we're governed in how we apply or work with a company that is interested in a SIP agreement and making sure that they meet minimum requirements. So that SIP overview section reflects those changes that have happened since 2006 with the 2015 changes and the 2023 changes that we've negotiated. So it's very clear that the minimum investments are indexed, that there are those expectations that are set in statute, that this is about a job creation tool in the traded sector. And all of that is just reflective of the state standards in that overview. And so all of that new information is included there. It is not specific to what the threshold will be in like 2027, because we won't know that. It's dependent upon the consumer price index. That's what it's indexed to, but that's clearly laid out in the overview that's what it's indexed to. So we'll be able to give more accurate numbers if someone were to come and propose a SIP agreement in 2027. We could say this is what the CPI would put that threshold at now. So those are the primary changes those are the changes that were made to the overview. So it just reads a more modern version. With that, I'll turn it back to Matt.
Wonderful. Thank you, Erin. And with that, I'll talk about some of the changes to the program objectives section, where the balance of the rest of the changes lie. Staff have worked following board feedback. Staff have worked to modify the program objectives. And there's kind of 2 categories of changes. So these 2 categories of changes are clarifying and modernizing language. We talk about some of this work differently. We talk about workforce development instead of low-wage jobs to high-wage jobs, for example. So that's one thing that we've looked to do. And the other one is following discussions with your board and about board priorities and feedback. We have sought to align the program objectives with the board's feedback, and also with a one Washington County approach. And of course, one Washington County is the unifying effort across the county service lines that recenters on community and the mission of the work that we do. So I'll provide one example here, and I have a slide that contains all of the changes. A couple minutes, we'll turn it back over to you, Chair, to lead the discussion here, but just wanted to highlight one of the changes here, which is changes to the second program objective. So the initial program objective in the 2006 policy read, provide job structures and support systems that will enable lower skilled residents to obtain entry-level jobs and move up and into higher paying jobs. That's great stuff. It's kind of a mouthful. No offense to our previous colleagues here. We've looked to, again, clarify and modernize some of that language, listening to board discussions about board priorities, to also change to reflect your desired outcomes for this work. So we have sought to change it to provide or support workforce development services that increase access to meaningful job opportunities for community members. So that's one example there. We've also added, you'll recall that there were 9 program objectives in the 2006 policy. We are proposing to add another program objective. This would be program objective number 10. And this program objective reads, extend local job and career advancement opportunities, especially to groups that have been economically or socially marginalized. And so this is about a reiteration of job creation and emphasize the need for investments to everyone in the community and not just those that have an educational base. We can also look to past practices that are in our previous SIP agreements, such as the Genentech agreement from 2006 that talks about community support, supporting education with the local community, financial and in-kind support for education programs for students. So that's a little bit of how things are operationalized. So this slide, this is a lot of text. I do apologize. I don't expect anyone to read the really small text. I'm sure folks that are watching online are squinting or putting on their reading glasses here, but I wanted to make sure that this is in the slide deck here. So we have it for reference and can come back to it here. But with that, I would like to turn it back to you, Chair Harrington, to lead the discussion here. And here are 2 policy questions for you all. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have for us.
So just to start, the idea is that we let you know if we have any questions for the proposed policy, and then you, based on that, you would be moving forward with bringing this back to us for adoption sometime in April, question mark?
That is correct, Chair Harrington. Yes, we will look for your feedback here and then bring it to a board meeting for formal adoption as soon as possible. Yes, which is probably April. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So with that clarification, commissioners, do you have any comments or questions? Or any needs leading up to the adoption day?
I have a couple I can do, but go ahead.
You go ahead, Brett.
And I never know what the numbers of these slides are, but I was looking at that. Just and then I'll have a question. This is one comment. You say increased access to meaningful job. You know, show you my prejudice. Every job is worthy. I don't care what it is.
Mhm.
But when you start saying meaningful, I'm not sure how you came to that word, but it really minimizes some jobs in my opinion. So I'm not sure that's a good word.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. And actually, I would say that I think it's trying to do exactly what you were talking about, which is to make sure that all jobs have an opportunity for career advancement. All jobs have schedules that are structured. All jobs have reasonable benefits and vacation and sick time and all of those things. And so it is actually leading into, as you describe it, jobs that are important and value the employee.
Okay, I must have just been reading it wrong, but the way it looked. And my only other question is that back in the day, and I see that the language changed a bit, we really were focusing on Washington County, not the community, because the community is how you define it. It could be Tri-County area. Tell me what the thought was. Why did you change things? It would be specific, saying we're focusing on Washington County jobs or Washington County folks to the community.
Yeah, so we use the term community members to make as an inclusive term to mean everybody within Washington County, all across the board.
It says Washington
so-
County community members.
Yeah, you're right. So the first program objective states Washington County community members. And so for all subsequent program objectives,
That would reply.
wherever it says community, it means Washington County community.
That's the way I read it.
Okay, so that's why I wasn't reading it. Like number one, it has that, but number two, on the next, whatever that, it just says community. And I thought, well, maybe you were trying for a much broader application. Okay, thanks. No questions.
So with that, you're okay with these two policy questions?
No thumbs up is rude, but I've been doing it, so it's okay.
I'm good with these and I appreciate I think it's almost more modernization than it is clarification. You know, it's bringing a policy from 2006 into 2024. So, and I appreciate that. And I think it's an indicator of how much we've grown and the changes that we have focused on in Washington County, up to and including inclusion, workforce development, some other pieces that make me pleased to see differences here. So I'm comfortable.
Thumbs up for me. Good job. I see the cleanup of the language.
Thank you. I think I'm, in terms of what you have here, I'm thumbs up. When I did read this packet, I thought, I bet we're gonna get some discussion around meaningful. But this is where I stepped back and looked at the entirety of that objective. And it's about providing or supporting workforce development services that increase access, right? So it's not just, do you have access to essentially minimum wage job that job's going to stay the same, always going to be an entry level, and there is no progression. Progression is the point. Having access to the workforce development services for that progression. So I followed you there. So my mind is on the adoption next steps. So I assume, but I need to clarify, that for the adoption next steps, that a public hearing is included on adopting the policy.
The SIP policy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I think that's something that we can do. I'm not sure of the procedural steps. I have a question, but yeah, I think that is something that can be included. Yeah.
Make sure
I
that
want to make
Yeah.
sure that we have explicit public comment
Got it.
opportunity as part of our adoption.
we'll work
That's
by agenda and
Yeah.
Clerk Moss to make sure it's scheduled for public hearing.
Clearly, I'm
As
not
opposed to
the
consent
expert.
agenda.
Got it. Yeah,
Yes.
got it.
That's
We'll schedule it as an action item with the opportunity, excuse me, for public comment.
that's wise for the future as we enter into the.
Related to that, when you went over the timeline slide with us, slide 6, you talked about that SIP overview and the ledge updates. I was like, yes, I remember SIP 101. In my mind, that's what I thought of it as. So, in the packet for adoption, I'm thinking about various community members, and I think it would be helpful to point them to that presentation packet, the video link of it, because it's very helpful.
Okay.
And the reason I'm picking up on that is stepping back and looking at the policy update, and I'm scratching my head a little bit because what I internalized previously, I'm afraid, isn't correct. My machine timed out here. On packet page, So I'm now looking at the document, Strategic Investment Program, the Jobs Expansion and Retention Policy 2024 draft,
Packet page
PDF
280.
page 280.
Yep.
So on 280, it talks about the project cost, the total cost of the project equals or exceeds the 150 million. I internalized that prior SIPs, including the 2014 one, were what's that, right? The total cost is that 100 million, right? And so I'll get to the buildings and land in a minute. So then when I go to the next page, and I don't understand the nuance enough, on the top of page 2 or PDF page 281 of 287, if the CBDC, I'm not sure have we called out what OBDC means?
Yes, up above on page 1.
Oh, right, the Oregon
It's
Business Development
Development Commission.
This is where.
It's Business Oregon Commission.
So now it says here 100 million.
So that's the amount that is exemptable. So the project,
I thought the amount exemptable was 150.
they only changed the threshold of investment and retained the property tax exemption is the first 100 million.
Okay.
Or the base, sorry.
Yeah,
But
the
that's
base.
Yeah,
Two
so
numbers.
we're gonna need a couple more slides in the presentation,
Okay,
or at
gotcha.
least I do. I'm gonna need some
Got it.
charts, pictures, whatever. Because one of the elements that I recall, and I'm afraid my recollection isn't right anymore, when you talked earlier, Matt, about some people are mistaken in thinking that companies that have SIP agreements don't pay any property tax. Well, there's the building and the land,
Mhm,
and they're taxed fully on that.
mhm.
And then they have these really expensive machinery projects. And that's particularly where the SIP agreements come into play.
Mhm.
And so that's takes me back to SIP 101. And so I want to encourage you or invite you to consider a couple more slides in here that remind us all of those basics. Because looking at that policy document, that's where I tripped up on that. Oh, why are we still talking about 100 million? I thought it was 150 million, right? Because I wanted to make sure we had some escalation. Did we get the escalation I was looking for because of the project business?
So both the size of the investment is indexed to the CPI. So next year, 150 million is the threshold, but also for the purposes of what is taxable, it's also indexed. So that 100 million will also be.
Yeah,
indexed up. Is
I'm
that
with
the
you on
question?
the indexing. What I'm still confused about is the 100 million versus 150 million.
Mhm. So
Is that for the land and buildings? No.
So the way the statute is written, it is the value of the project. So our SIPs with Intel and Genentech, the buildings and land are already owned and operated. So the new investment, that
Is on that
150 is
equipment.
on the equipment and
Yep.
those sorts of things. In other counties, they have had bare land, and so it is possible those buildings are part of that $150 million, or usually the smaller SIPs, the rural SIPs.
Mhm.
But that 150 can include the buildings. Is that,
No,
I've sidetracked myself.
no, you didn't sidetrack me.
Myself.
Oh, okay. I'm with you that they're
Mhm.
paying,
Yeah.
continue to pay the property taxes
Yes.
on the building and land.
Mhm.
And that, thanks to the new legislation, there's indexing.
Yeah.
My problem is, when are we talking 150? I know we're talking 150 million as the minimum,
Minimum investment,
Mhm.
minimum new dollars.
but don't we get to tax them When they have a new project with new equipment, we
Mhm.
used to be able to only tax them on the first 100 million of it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Now we get to tax them on the first 150 million
It's,
before all the index.
First 100 million.
it's the first time
So,
they
so
left
we
that.
could, so here's an example that.
So that's the part that I wanted changed that we didn't get.
Correct. Yes,
Got it.
sorry. Now I'm tracking. Thank you,
That's fine.
Jennifer.
So how does the 150 million help us? They increase, but in the wrong place.
The overall value of the projects has to be higher, so the threshold for even being eligible for a SIP is what changes.
Okay.
Right.
So it didn't really
Yeah.
achieve what I was looking for.
The indexing is the small version of what we were looking for. It is not, they did not equalize.
Yeah, but it's.
Yeah.
Indexed as of 2024, so we're still losing all that time between 1990 and 2024. Okay. Yep, all right. Well, that's water under the bridge anyway, so, okay,
Okay,
great.
thank you very much. Appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.
All righty. That brings us to board and leadership communication. Who would like to go first?
You always do it.
Pam does. I feel heated or whatever that was. Let's see. There's a few things that I want to talk about, but I'm not fully prepared to talk about the waste-free policy task force information. What I'd like to be able to do, I can say that there's a recommendation. I'm going to send it to you. I just received it. This was the task force that I sat on when I couldn't be there.
This is the Metro,
Yes, thank you.
this is the Metro Waste something or
Yes.
other task force.
And I'll be sending you the information there. Tom Eggleston sat in my place. This was the group that was formed, and they met every day on Tuesday, which was part. So, but I was very much in touch with Tom with what was happening, and now with Erin Klein-Brelstein. I believe I sent her.
Another Erin.
Yeah, but she wins length here. And there's basically, the recommendations are going to the, Metro Council. I think the big change is that the top 3 criteria now are accessible and equitable systems, healthy environment, and affordability. But I will send this to you and we'll get further information as per your needs. The
Accessible and equitable.
accessible and equitable systems, healthy environment, and affordability.
So question. When you and I each dove into this topic initially, they were looking at re-examining the whole regional system. And they looked at different options that included abandoning having a full service transfer station in the city of Cornelius. With these current recommendations, I understand you're going to email us a memo for what the committee recommendations are, and then it's going to go to the Metro Council, and we'll be lucky if we hear anything back. What's the recommendation with regard to the scenario that may or may not include abandoning the Cornelius site?
And I think maybe the best way to describe that is that this was just the fee setting policy.
Oh,
So that's
the waste
difference.
fee setting
yes,
task force.
yes, we are getting a presentation. I can give you the presentation.
Yeah, I was confused on the whole
The
title.
the 2 programs that are.
So it's the Metro Waste Fee Setting Task Force.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. This last week, I attended my first patrol briefing at the sheriff's office. I've been working on those along with Al Roque. I met with about 10 deputies in person over at headquarters, and I'm doing this on a shift basis. I've done this in the past. There's lots of feedback. In the beginning, sometimes it's very quiet for a bit, but then there's general feedback, and I will come back to you with a compilation of the feedback from the course of those meetings.
So if I remember right, this is just something that you wanted to do, and so you're doing it and collecting information for your benefit. You're saying you're gonna share it with us.
Yes.
Okay.
And let's see what else here. Yesterday I attended the AOC Legislative Committee and the Board of Directors meeting along with Chair Harrington. And Commissioner Fye was there for the Legislative Committee. I intended to go to Salem, but because of computer problems, I was here. And by the way, special call out to Mark Fisher over there in the corner for handling my personal crisis with aplomb. So I appreciated all the support there. The upshot of the legislative committee was it was a review of what's happened in Salem, and not much more than we know here. I leave it to you if you have more that you'd like to add to that conversation. The board meeting was a review of the financial situation. There was one place where I raised my hand with disagreement. We were also talking about the location of the annual meeting. And there's some interest in, it's presented that there's interest in moving the location of the annual meeting to various other counties, but the reality is that the other counties can't necessarily support the scope of that event. And so the event is currently at the Graduate in Eugene. The staff came back with a 5-year contract proposal. And obviously when you have a 5-year contract, you save money over a 3-year commitment. And, but the staff recommended 5-year. I think it's fair to say that the chair of the board requested a 3-year.
The AOC president.
Yeah, thank you. AOC president requested it to be 3-year. I raised the question of what was the price differential because that was never clear. Commissioner Pope said, well, if we don't, and the comment back was, we don't know the exact, or we don't have the exact price difference. Commissioner Pope says, well, let's table this so that so we can know what our choices are. But that kind of got a nod, and then the president moved on to a vote on that proposal. I voted against it. Chair voted against it. Commissioner Pope voted against it, but it did pass. So that, and the bottom line is the extra cost for going to a 3-year contract rests solely with the counties. So we pay that extra cost. So that was the frustrating part for me, or one little part that was frustrating for me. I'm going to be attending the AOC meeting next Monday. The summit that's going to be focused on the Measure 110 reforms and implementation. So I know that there are several of us that will be attending that. I just put that out there. Tomorrow I have a longer meeting with Diane Taniguchi-Dennis and Joe Gall to catch up with where you are in relationship to your training. So I'm looking forward to that. And at the end of this week, I have an impact coordinating committee meeting and the North Bethany County Service District for Roads Committee meeting and an RDPO meeting on Friday. So that's on my schedule.
What is RDPO even?
Right now,
focusing on?
there's some budget issues that they're focused.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time on seeking grants, securing debt grants, how to keep the system funded. But beyond, and that's all fair, no criticism there. But what actual work is being used to advance our capabilities?
Well, I have not seen the agenda for Friday as of today. And I just talked to John Wheeler before at lunchtime, and John hasn't seen it either. So we are looking toward figuring out what it is that RDPO is focused on right now.
So board members, this is where I think we can help support our liaison. I think it's a dues paying organization. And I am not questioning, let me be clear, I am not questioning the need for an RDPO. And there's an awful lot of work that happens through the work groups and staff level. But I think ultimately from 1 year to the next year to the next year, I think it's fair for the elected bodies to understand what is it that we're working towards from 1 year to the next at a high level versus just satisfying the Department of Homeland Security.
I will get back to
Oh, commissioners, are you in support of us having her take that question for us?
Of course.
Okay.
you. And I can tell you that I'm certain that John Wheeler is in support as well. That's great to work with on this.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Dees.
Yeah, you're volunteering today, people. Commissioner Rogers, I see. Well, I just want to give a shout out to and advance thank you to Stephen Roberts and his team for I'm doing a roundtable with the IIJA, an opportunity for modernizing public transit roundtable that I'm participating tomorrow. So
You're doing a round table? What does that mean?
So
I know we're allowed to use our staff assistants for commissioner town halls. But I
So-
don't know about the individual commissioner roundtable public meeting.
yeah, so this isn't a roundtable for me. It's a roundtable invitation that came to the county about participating. So I guess I should start from the beginning.
What is
I'll take on Stephen Roberts. I'll take it. Unless you want to come. Go ahead. Yeah, join us. Thank you.
Thank you. So this was an invitation to participate in a panel of some local jurisdictions around work that we're doing to try to help improve transit utilization and specifically around some technology components of that. So we wanted to highlight some of the work that we're doing with transit signal priority and some other tools that we use to try to help advance that practice.
Who's the invitation from?
Yeah, who's doing the forum?
Right front here.
Yeah. people.
I don't know if we're invited or not.
Yeah, the infrastructure. It's the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the Biden's.
Oh.
$180 million investment. And this part is focused on the transportation and specifically for public transportation modernization. And the funding, how we best utilize. Everybody's already.
It's taken a lot of time to get.
The conversation is being facilitated by the Atlas, which is an organization that focuses on transit policy at the federal level. Sorry. thanks.
Yeah.
Brenda
Faster than
Albert.
me. Thank you.
It's just so it's not a district-based specific roundtable, it's just an invitation. But I was like, 2 minutes.
So it's very fair that you've been invited as a member of the commission to represent the county's transportation role in an event moving forward. Totally. We spent a lot of time just trying to understand
Yeah.
what it was you were.
The goal
trying
was
to
to come
share.
back next week to address it, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Stephen Roberts for convening tomorrow or today.
When is your forum?
It's Thursday. So just There are a lot of prepping going on, so just wanted to give a.
So some outside organization is having a forum on President Biden's Investment Infrastructure and Jobs Act. You're going to be representing the county public transit. And go team, go.
Thank you, Jenna. That probably would have been the best way to address it. Sorry, team, thank you, everyone, for that quick pivot.
Correction.
Correction, yes. So I'll be quick. I'll just focus on, so yesterday I attended as well, the AOC, yesterday was an AOC day, but I will focus on the Health and Human Services Steering Committee. This is a committee that I co-chair along with Commissioner Kramer, who is a commissioner from Wasco County. And two things that we just focused on. Two priorities that AOC had around Health and Human Services. That was established a statutory process and schedule for a cost study and of core behavioral health services, and then mitigate liability risks to counties and local system providers for mandated populations. So those are the two priorities. And then yesterday's meeting was what was the outcome, what did we accomplish, and what we focused on was the outcomes for House Bill 4090B, which is the core behavioral health cost study, and a work group to reduce the burden that was passed. And then obviously Measure 110 reform policy bill. So those are, and that also got passed. But that was the focus on AOC and other bills that were around Health and Human Services. But it sounds like AOC really had a successful legislative session this year. There were a lot of priorities that they had as an organization, really worked really hard. And the biggest win being behavioral health and mental. So with that, I turn it to the next person.
Me. Okay. I normally don't take my 5 minutes, but I'm going to do it today. I want to tell you a story. And you're going to say, a story? Yes, I think it's
I
important.
love stories.
Stories.
Especially if they have a happy dance.
I'll let you do the happy dance because you do it so much better. My wife had been attending, I would say, an informal group in a local restaurant. She just went out and get lunch and would meet people. And this was a interesting group because they didn't have the same kinds of thoughts, patterns on a number of issues, and came from very different backgrounds. And they dispersed after a while. I mean, they just kind of would be. But this one individual had an interesting story, one that you'll see has a nexus with the county. She is a daughter of a doctor who is long since gone because she's now 70, so you can tell that she's a senior, who made a number of choices in her life that maybe weren't as successful as she would have liked. She was a police officer at one time. She's educated, but didn't really save any money, didn't really do something. She happens to be gay, so she doesn't have a partner when they broke up a few years ago, and finds herself in an interesting position where she's now with her Social Security after she pays her rent on a place in Tigard, which is moldy. It's not a good place, I can tell you, but after she pays that, her utility, she has $300 a month to live on. Now, I don't know about all of you, but that comes down to $10 a day. So she's making some very difficult choices. She's on medications for a number of things. And she said, well, I either stop my medications, I stop eating, I see everybody having a cup of coffee or whatever, $10 is nothing. You can't live on that. So she is an interesting individual to me because she never is blaming anybody. She says she accepts responsibility. I like people who accept responsibility for themselves. And she just said, it is what it is. I probably won't be around by the end of the year because I can't take my medicine and I can't eat. It's just the way it is. Hearing that touched my heartstrings a bit. And so I called one of our staff members, who you know is in the room at the very back. And I said, I don't know what you can do if you can do anything, but take a look at this situation. It just doesn't seem right Tigard, Oregon, Washington County, United States of America to be in this situation. Marnie got some of her staff looking at it, and I know she's got 1,001 things to do. You've got a whole department to run, you've got big policy issues, but out of the goodness of your heart, you took and looked at this particular issue. Now, I don't know the outcome, so you say, is there a positive outcome? I don't know at this point, but you know what's positive about it? Is she has hope. For the first time, she has hope. And she says, even if nothing comes of it, somebody listened, somebody cared. She worked up to a few months ago, but her health didn't allow her to do that. She was in a call center, so you know you don't make a lot of money. As a police officer, she made pretty good money in the police department, but that was years ago. So the previous providers had directed her to go look on the internet. I would challenge any of you, if you make $10 a day, you don't have internet. You don't have a computer. You don't have anything. And Marnie, you and your crew sent somebody there, or didn't really send somebody, you talked on the phone, and she's delighted. Not that you ever solved anything at this point, but she has a path forward. So I just want to say thank you. I mean, I think it's important that we put a human face to some of the things you do. So yeah, we all attend a lot of meetings. I've been at chamber meetings, been in all kinds of things, but this one touched my heart because here was somebody who you could actually help. It's a difference between life and death, and it's a difference between just talking in very generalized terms and getting specific. So sorry to take so much on my story, but it's a good one. Our staff does some really good human relations work. So I didn't take it all, 30 seconds. I'll give it to you.
Thank you for sharing that, Commissioner Rogers. And as far as the outreach portion, the county is in the service business of helping those who are most vulnerable and in need of help. 211, if you dial 211, that is one way for people to connect to find out more about the services and get hooked up with a case manager who can help people ensure that they fall out of homelessness because they are having to make a life or death decision between taking their medicine or paying their rent and utilities. And it's one reason why the Metro Council worked with regional jurisdictions and CBOs to put the Metro Affordable Housing Bond Measure of 2018 together. A lot of one of the targets was older community members and people who are disabled who are on a fixed income, such as Social Security, and needing to stretch it beyond housing to deal with food, prescription medicine, so on and so forth. So yes, there is hope. There is always hope. Sometimes it's really hard for us to see it or hook up with it. And I'm really glad that yet another community member has experienced that hope and has had the experience that, yes, there's always someone who cares. So that's what our team does each and every day. Yep.
Thank you, Marnie.
Yep. Yep. All righty. So I'm going to start with an item from last week. At our business meeting last Tuesday, we received a hard copy letter and it was brought to life. It's a letter from our Washington County Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, and the letter was transmitted to us and presented live by the chair, Rachel Schutz. And so we've all had the opportunity to receive the letter from our staff from last Tuesday. And it is addressed to us as the Board of Commissioners. So before I have a draft letter of response back to this board here in Washington County, I wanted to touch bases here with you. I think it's a good letter. There isn't anything in the letter I believe we need to correct or that I don't disagree with. They're really important committee. They're helping to bring to life the kind of system analysis that the Public Safety and Justice paper has represented per our request and the kind of challenges we're grappling with. They certainly go on to articulate, just as other Washington County boards and commissions do, to advocate that we protect this particular arena during our proposed budget cycles, but that's no different than a myriad of others. So I just wanted to stop here on the journey with the board and see if you're interested in having a draft acknowledgement and thank you letter for consideration in upcoming Tuesdays.
And Rachel was there with Melissa Laird as well, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yep, I'm just, it's my brain.
This will be a chair letter that we all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I'm comfortable with that.
You're going to see the language of it.
Yeah. I like the fact that we would be responding. Thank you for that. I think it's, when I remember, I read the letter, but not recently, but there comes about the DA and some other groups as well. I just make sure that we're prepared to respond to this.
So that means when there's a draft letter,
I'll
that
participate.
I'll make sure that the original letter is included so you can make sure it meets your information. Okay. Alrighty. Then as noted with AOC Day steering committee meetings late last week and through yesterday, I would like to highlight a few things. First, in the joint Public Safety, Health and Human Services Steering Committee, we each received the state's official Oregon Drug Intervention Plan. Kudos to Aaron Doyle in prior weeks doing a hand drawing of how the process is supposed to work. And now this is the official state one. So we have a really big role to play in this one aspect of it over here with regard to deflection. And then it goes on to describe the, what I refer to as the diversion part that involves the court and Washington County staff with the community corrections, behavioral health, and court all together in one. The memo in the Joint Public Safety and Health and Human Services Steering Committee is also very useful because it talks about the multiple bills, not just HB 4002, but the bills that also enable the funding. So that's important to take a look at. There's also a medical examiner study, and I'm here to ask the board that we ensure or confirm that Washington County staff will actively participate in the effort to modernize that system and look at a regional system. Through that presentation, I learned that 95% of deaths are not homicide, and therefore determining the cause of death is important. And I'll say for my own family's most recent experience, that it's a really important thing to determine cause of death. So are you in favor of asking the CAO to confirm whether or not we're participating or not? Great. Related to that, as Commissioner Treese mentioned, a special meeting is organized for next Monday afternoon, 1 to 4, on the whole Measure 110 reform. But we here in Washington County have a lot to coordinate and figure out in the next 6 months before the first effective go live date for deflection. And I don't know what staff's recommending for that because we do have to approve grants that will support this effort. And I don't know what staff's thinking on that is yet. But also there's coordination needed across all of the law enforcement police officer services across all the cities of Washington County. Phew, it's a lot. With public safety and veterans, House Bill 4140, around Children's Advocacy Center funding, talks about Survivor Housing Fund and the Domestic and Sexual Violence Services Fund that affect our community members here in Washington County. So I hope our housing and services team will be moving forward from there. But that memo in that packet was useful. For community corrections, there's a new actual cost study effort that's going on. And I know from Nate Gowie-Rand's speaking up that Washington County will be participating. In that very same Public Safety and Veterans Affairs Steering Committee meeting, we had a great overview on veteran services. And it was pretty amazing, a lot of data, but underscores how the veteran service officers are available here in our community, and the work that they do is very impactful in getting veterans informed and hooked up with benefits. So not only VA benefits, but also Department of Defense, DOD benefits. And that includes another bill that helped clarify cremains use. So they talked about how counties do put money in more than just what the state offers, as well as the lottery funds that are used to support veteran services through other agencies. So just really cool demographic information. And I know Commissioner Willie is on vacation and he's our Dave's liaison for that, for the committee here in Washington County. So I know he'll be interested in that. I did not attend governance and revenue because I was away last Friday. In the legislative committee meeting, we were provided with the interim calendar. And we learned that the AOC Ledge retreat in June will be rescheduled away from June 20th and 21st because it conflicts with the Eastern County Women's Economic Forum, which is a big event out that way. I also asked about the AOC steering committee processes so that we are successful with the pre-filing deadlines of September, and AOC staff said they would get back to us on that. So you'll all want to take a look at that. And talked about the conference that Commissioner Reese talked about. So that's everything on that big day yesterday. I'm also being prepped by staff. We were asked if we wanted to participate in a KATU hosted town hall on deflection and House Bill 4002. And so staff asked me as the board chair, and I said, sure, I'll serve to represent the county. Well, things have snowballed quickly, and I learned that Sheriff Massey will be participating in Straight Talk. elected district attorney, Kevin Barton, is ahead of everybody in this whole topic. And is highlighting his preference in terms of the work that the rest of us actually have to do to support deflection. So there's a lot I have to be prepared to be asked about on Thursday. I'm feeling very much like the tip of the spear. Next week, we have the Metro Regional Housing Stakeholder Advisory Table meeting on Wednesday. We talked about, it was one of two topics at the Tri-County Chair meeting. I don't know if the notes from that meeting have been emailed out yet, but we talked about the need for continuing to educate the Metro Council as well as that stakeholder advisory table about how successful our SHS efforts are in addressing homelessness. So in addition, thanks to the terrific work of our staff, we've just finalized a op-ed for potential publication to keep telling the story there. So sorry, I'm way over my 5 minutes, but a lot of big ticket items in the mix. Oh, and that's in addition to my returning from being away last week and catching up with 7 different packets. So I'm a little tired. Daylight savings has been. So let's move it over to leadership communication.
Okay, so first, I'll start off with an update on the 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan. The Office of Community Development is beginning the community engagement process for this planning process. The consolidated plan is a 5-year strategic plan that builds on an intensive community engagement process to assess our housing and community development needs and prioritize investment of an estimated 35 million of federal investment over the next 5 years. We are partnering with Beaverton and Hillsborough on the community engagement process so that we are asking community once for input because Beaverton and Hillsborough have to do their plans as well. So it's a great opportunity to partner and minimize maybe confusion for our community members.
Quick question on that. You might have said this and I just didn't catch it fast enough. Is there a deadline by which we have to have that consolidated plan developed and adopted?
I don't have that deadline, so staff will follow up in an email.
Well, the reason that I'm asking is back in 2019, and I realize there was a different community development director than Jenny Proctor. But I recall feeling like that the effort that we went through in 2019 was a really positive one. She made sure that the kind of research projects or research aspects that went into this to characterize the Washington County community was really useful to me as one of 5. And so I know we had at least one work session that brought that to life. And so I'm hoping that we'll get the benefit of that research completion, which may be in advance of the actual plan being ready for adoption.
Yeah, staff will follow up with an email that outlines the community engagement window as well as the timing of potential adoption.
Yeah, I
with
just
some
wanted to
work
make
that-
sure that they know. I think the board found that really useful before, and I realize it's only every 5 years or so. If we don't say we want it,
right?
Yeah.
I'm also pleased to share with your board that PGE Foundation has generously donated $10,000 to the Library Foundation of Washington County, which supports WCCLS. And this is really recognizing during the ice storms that youth primarily, there was no school, so access to materials, and really want to highlight Commissioner Treese. I believe this is during the time Catherine, our chair, you had to step away, and so really advocating for Washington County's needs with PGE. What's interesting is just during that week, digital materials went up by 10% throughout our library system. And I think that speaks to just the importance of digital literacy tools, just as the traditional hard books within our library system.
And the digital materials are some of our most expensive materials in the collection.
Right. In January of 2024, the request for digital materials actually increased by 25% throughout our system. So that is an area that Lisa Tattersall and team are looking at moving forward because it is very expensive. So just want to thank PGE for their partnership and support and look forward. And this is what I want to highlight to your board is a photo opportunity with the foundation and your board at West Slope Library on April 5th. So you will be receiving a calendar appointment. This is optional. So if your schedules allow, please be there. I'm also pleased to share that as of this afternoon, there will be a press release issued that I have offered the vacant Assistant County Administrator position to Ann Ober, and currently serves as the City Manager of Milwaukee, Oregon, where she has been for 7 years. She's also served in executive roles for municipal governments in Utah, including Salt Lake County, Salt Lake City, and Park City. Her portfolios throughout her tenure of within these other local governments have included sustainability, emergency management, information technology, government relations, community relations, and diversity. She will be starting on May 1st with the county. Anne is such a strong candidate that we did not have a robust final interview process similar to how we have done. So I've appreciated just your board's feedback through hiring processes. Also, our county leadership team really to help identify what are the needs. And I am very confident that Anne will help round out the team. And that concludes.
Congratulations. Mr. Anderson.
Yes, to add on to that, I met Ann today. She'll be great. So, wanted to know, I'm gonna be out Friday, but Courtney Jason will be available in case he comes up. We've been looking just preliminary at deflection, and it is gonna have an impact on the county, in much broader areas than what I think we initially anticipated. So we're working with the departments on that particular issue.
Mr. Anderson, if I can just expand on that, staff have a meeting this afternoon, and we will be updating your board just what those next steps are, what are board touch points. Chair, as you had alluded to, this becomes quite expansive quite quickly when we start to talk about the implementation of the program, as well as really a short timeline to be able to do so. So staff are just really wrapping their heads around, and we'll keep your board involved.
Yes.
Thank you.
If you saw on the hot sheet, we have a behavioral health financial assistance agreement. It is March, but we have one it's going to pay us for this year, next year. A lot of
Or fiscals.
they run on calendar for to match it up with the CCO agreements. There's a lot of discussion on getting back to a fiscal year calendar, which makes a lot more sense for our county perspective. A lot of work by attorneys to get that to the finish line. I wanted to share with you because you brought up the bill chair on the medical examiner study. I've been invited to participate in a panel to discuss the local perspective on the medical examiner system in Oregon. I'm going to be sitting on it. It's a panel. It's a nationwide. It's a public health law conference this year, and scholarship. So you're not having to pay for anything on this. But I'm going to bring the local government perspective. CDC is going to bring that kind of a national perspective because they've done a study of all 50 states on how it's done. Nobody's created the perfect mousetrap yet, but and everybody does a little differently across the United States. So, I'll be really interested to hear how other states are doing it. But there will be CDC, a state perspective of someone from North Carolina, and then I'll bring the local government experience, such as we should have to do.
One of the things that, I can't remember the major's name, that
Yeah.
he highlighted multiple times is that, Major Alex Gardner, yeah, from Oregon State Police, is how the current state of affairs and national standards, it's a huge gulf.
Correct.
And that it will take time for us to modernize the system and get to regional. But what I don't yet understand between the current state of affairs, which is pretty dire, just trying to do the bare minimums, and not even that, and this aspirational BKM model, if I can refer to that, is what is our roadmap to try and make improvement? And I would really benefit from, so that whole context is totally missing for me. Because I haven't heard this county, I mean, we've been very supportive of our own staff to try and make sure that we provide reasonable service, but I have no way of articulating what that service level is. So I think it's something that there's a lot of work to be figured out just from our own county standpoint, let alone the whole statewide system.
Yes, that's absolutely true. We've been depending on state police a lot, and they've cut back on their services. So that's where we find ourselves right now.
Yeah. But I'm very confident that we have a really smart team.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And so I guess, Ms. Angie, what it leads me to ask for is, I would like our staff to be able to say, here's where we've been, here's where we are at today, because we've committed resources to do some problem solving. So this is where we're trying to get to for functional, given that the states had to pull back. But what is our county strategy? I don't know if our own medical examiner's team is able to meet minimum standards for a county service or not. And so I'd like to learn more about that moving ahead. And then we can look at it in light of our state legislative agenda in terms of how is one of the most populous counties with the Tri-County area being the most populous metro area of the state, how can we advance together?
Yeah, that's something we gotta figure out. I do want to caution you a little bit that, there's kind of this concept of are we gonna get the cart before the horse? Because if we're gonna regionalize as a state, then that will impact where we're gonna move forward.
Correct.
So,
Yep. But what we know is the current status quo isn't working. So paralysis doesn't help anybody.
Right. Yeah. Last thing I wanted to share with you. Oh, go ahead.
It's fun. So, Ms. Kyle will work with the HHS team to bring the children.
Oh, right.
To
It's in the whole HHS
Right.
portfolio.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just a quick note, you may remember the Walt Betchart case. That is unfortunately, it's going to trial. Just wanted to share that with you. We'll see how things go. He has both criminal charges and an element with us as well.
Yep.
Yeah. That concludes my report.
All righty. Thank you. Clean Water Services. Hello, Diane Taniguchi Dennis. Over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you, Chair Harrington, and good afternoon to the Board of Clean Water Services. I just have one announcement. We received really great news from Congresswoman Bonamici about the congressional infrastructure funding for a federal grant of $959,752 for the Western Washington County Inflow and Infiltration Rehabilitation Project. And if you remember, this is a critical project as it enables us to continue with the replacement of aging sanitary sewer lines in the city of Forest Grove. And this will help us reduce the peak flows to our Forest Grove water resource recovery facility that is being caused by groundwater and rainwater that enters into the sewer system. And overall, this is really an important water quality, public health, and community benefit for the ratepayers of Forest Grove, Cornelius, and Gaston, so that we're not continuing to utilize capacity for infiltration and inflow water. But we're very thankful for the support of Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley, as well as Congresswoman Bonamici. Otherwise, this would not have happened for all of us. And it's just been great news for us. So
Well, count this board of directors in for sending a thank you letter, card, or otherwise.
thank you. We'll make that arrangement, and Tracy Rainey and I will do that and bring it to the board for all of you.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Great. Any other board or leadership items for today? Oh,
Good
excellent.
note to end on, though.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
All righty.
Nearly a million.
So we are adjourned here at 2:15 in the afternoon. Thank you.